Welcome. Hello. I want everybody to be, okay. I'm going to move this, Betsy. I will move it back. I'm watching the cords just so that I'm not standing like this. Welcome, everyone, to poetry, pastries, pajamas, in whatever order I decided those should go in. This is a casual time of fellowship and of sharing. We are going to light a chalice, and I'll let everybody know that we are not passing baskets today. There is a basket that lives over there on the edge of the stage. Please, if you are so moved, reach into your hearts and your wallets and make a little donation for us today that always supports the mission and vision of this beautiful church. So thanks, everybody who's here for being here. And I am going to light our chalice, again, as we do in Unitarian Universalist congregations all over the nation and the world. And I'm sure we all know the song well enough to kind of sing the song together while I do this. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of light. Okay, I said I would put this back, and I'm putting it back. So, doing a bad job. I'm going to switch to the handheld so I can read my book at the same time without leaning over like this. So this idea started last year for me and some colleagues who were trying to think what we would do on when New Year's Eve itself was a Sunday. And we weren't sure we would get a lot of people to come on a morning thing on a Sunday, but we still wanted people to gather. This week between Christmas and New Year's, for me every year, is kind of a sacred time because I think it's a time that most of us in society are allowed to slow down, not that everyone chooses to, and of course there are all people working the sorts of jobs that we can't just let kind of fall aside, right? Our firefighters and our emergency room physicians and nurses and our veterinarians and our people who are on call when there is trouble. And of course, please, if you do anything this week, be kind to a retail worker. They have been through a lot. And it is that time of year when it gets really hard. I've brought no script. We are just here. This is basically an open mic. We are going to take a pause like halfway through and hear lifelines from our community. And I would like to read. I'm going to put this down. So this is one of my favorite books of, I don't want to call it a book of poetry. It is actually a narrative through a dystopian future where most of the planet has been moved to the moon as a kind of penal colony. It is called Not a Lot of Reasons to Sing, But Enough by Kyle Tran-Myrie, who's a poet, educator, and activist in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You may have seen, he's gone viral a couple of times. He does a lot of work around manhood and masculinity. He's a great poet. This is a cycle of poems that are following the adventures of a robot poet and their apprentice as they travel from town to town, having circle fires, right, where we sit around and we all tell each other stories and listen to each other's words, which is what we're doing today. So I'm going to start us with this reading from Kyle Tran-Myrie, and then we're going to open it up. This is called Blessing in the Darkness, Fire. Before the performance begins, an elder addresses the people. Why do we gather in the company of fire? As with all things, there is a reason on the surface and a reason underneath, and both matter. Performing by firelight is dramatic. It makes us look good. Performing at night creates intimacy. The darkness is a shroud that prevents our words from flying off into forever. Finally, this fire is special. It is not a cooking fire nor a signal fire. It exists for this particular purpose. We do not remember the world, but some metaphors are so deeply rooted they persist beyond memory. Fire as defiance, fire as truth, fire as knowledge. The same flame that could burn this entire village to ash can light our way through the darkness. The same flame that cooks my food can kill me. Fire resists easy labels, hero, villain, good, evil, even life, death. But no matter how nuanced our analysis, how comfortable we become with the discomfort of complexity, even the lack of absolutes contains an absolute. Fire burns. It always burns. What does this have to do with expression, with art? As always, I leave the meaning-making to you. That's right, today the meaning-making is in your hands, friends. I would like to invite anyone who has something to share to come up to one of these two microphones. We can also bring this one to you, but we know we have some folks on YouTube, so if you are comfortable coming to a microphone to share, I invite you to do that right now.
Hello, hello. This is part of an essay in a collection of essays by Brian Doyle called One Long River of Song. Highly recommend it. Interest of time, I'm just jumping in towards the end of one he wrote called The Final Frontier. But you cannot control anything. You cannot order or command everything. You cannot fix and repair everything. You cannot protect your children from pain and loss and tragedy and illness. You cannot be sure that you will always be married, let alone happily married. You cannot be sure you will always be employed or healthy or relatively sane. All you can do is face the world with quiet grace and hope you make a sliver of difference. Humility does not mean self-abnegation, lassitude, detachment. It's more a calm recognition that you must trust in that which does not make sense, that which is unreasonable, illogical, silly, ridiculous, crazy by the measure of most of our culture. You must trust that you, being the best possible you, matters somehow. That trying to be an honest and tender parent will echo for centuries through your tribe. That doing your chosen work with creativity and diligence will shiver people far beyond your ken. That being an attentive and generous friend and citizen will prevent a thread or two of the social fabric from unraveling. And you must do all of this with a certain knowledge that you will never get proper credit for it. And in fact, the vast majority of things you do right will go utterly unremarked. Humility, the final frontier, as my brother Kevin used to say. When we are young, we build a self, a persona, a story in which to reside, or several selves in succession, or several all at once sometimes. When we are older, we take on other roles and personas, other masks and duties. And you and I both know men and women who become trapped in the selves they worked so hard to build, so desperately imprisoned that sometimes they smash their lives simply to escape who they no longer wish to be. But finally, I think, if we are lucky, if we read the book of pain and loss with humility, we realize that we are all broken and small and brief, that none among us is ultimately more valuable or ringing or rich or famous or beautiful than another. And then perhaps we begin to understand something deep and true about humility. This is what I know. It might be me ringing. Oh, sorry, okay. This is what I know, that the small is huge, that the tiny is vast, that pain is part and parcel of the gift of joy, and that this is love. And then there's everything else. You either walk toward love or away from it with every breath you draw. Humility is the road to love. Humility maybe is love. That could be. I wouldn't know. I'm a muddle and a conundrum shuffling along, slowly along the road, gaping in wonder, trying to just see and say what is, trying to leave shreds and shards of ego along the road, like wisps of litter and chaff.
Thank you, thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much. And that's a good reminder that it doesn't have to be a poem. It can be a piece of an essay. It can be, and I also invited that if you have like a favorite New Year's thing that you always did culturally in your family, something like that, if there's something you'd like to share. So I'd like to invite anybody else up. Oh, Bonnie is ready.
You hear me? Good morning. My short story has a lot to do with a picture. So I'm going to pass it around, hoping you can see what happened was I have this niece, Bill knows her from our pool, and she's the most energetic, interesting kid you've ever seen. And one day, she was given a tutu, and she was 3 years old. She had never had anything like that. And she put it on and danced around, and then got indignant when somebody said she needed sand in her sandbox because she was planting junk. So she went out and started digging. Well, I was in my writing class that we have here on Wednesdays, and I showed this picture I took of her. And Erica, our Unitarian poet, wrote this poem. And I think if you could see the picture, you'd appreciate the poem even more. But knowing Erica, it's okay just to hear it. Sophia's Choice. Precious pink Sunday best, laced and frills, new tutu dress, hair in curls, 3-year-old body wrapped 1,000-fold. Concentration on her brow, mouth is set, determined now. Arms are poised, hands gripped firm, her shovel digs for precious worm. Clearly princess all the while, blissful in the compost pile.
Eventually get back to Bonnie. Yes, Erica.
Erica, one of the UUCR poets. For anybody that's here for the first or second time, this is not my normal Christmas attire. Speaking of Christmas, this poem is about the day or two after Christmas. It's called The Aftermath. The neighborhood carnage was devastating. Santa and his elves prostrate on the ground. Reindeer splayed against the boxwoods. Mr. and Mrs. Frosty left to languish in a polyethylene petal of their former selves. Rows of Christmas lights, their glow extinguished. Bare bulbs left forlorn as they rattled in the frozen gusts. At the curb, Overstuffed black trash bins erupted with cardboard and wrapping paper, while blue recycling bins, still shiny, sat back out of the way, neglected. It all started on Black Friday when the wallets and the purses descended in a feeding frenzy, elbowing each other at the trough, followed by Cyber Monday as anonymous algorithms herded unsuspecting shoppers into their cyber holding pens. Headlong into the holiday, the frantic pace continued of tight ropes and tired tropes, all pointing to the media-sanctioned bottom line. The day after Christmas, Christ, dazed and despondent, the previous year's scabs torn open, once again wondered, why did I bother?
Hi, friends. I have two things to share, and in the sake of me not getting out of breath, going back and forth, I'm going to do them both at the same time. The first starts with a story, and it's a quote that I imagine a lot of you are familiar with because it's from the book Dune. But the story, I will try not to cry. On January 18th, Atlanta forest defender Tortuguita was shot 57 times by Georgia State Patrol. It was originally reported that he had shot at them. It was later found from body cam footage that that was friendly fire that one of those officers received. He was sitting on the ground with his legs, they were sitting on the ground with their legs crossed and their arms up in the air. This is emotional for me because I'm from Decatur, Georgia, and the Stop Cop City project is something that is really dear to my heart. One of Tortuguita's favorite quotes is from the book Dune, and I'm going to read that for you now. And when I think of them sitting in that position, giving their life for that forest, I hope that this is where they were at with themselves. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. And the secondary thing that I would like to share with you is also from a book. If any of you are familiar with Clive Barker, he's a horror author, but he is in the process of producing this body of work called the Abarat series, and it's taking a really long time for people who want it to be done. One of the most beautiful poems from the book is this. It's from Abarat, Days of Magic, Nights of War. I dreamed I spoke in another's language. I dreamed I lived in another's skin. I dreamed I was my own beloved. I dreamed I was a tiger's kin. I dreamed that Eden lived inside me, and when I breathed, a garden came. I dreamed I knew all of creation. I dreamed I knew the Creator's name. I dreamed, and this dream was the finest, that all I dreamed was real and true, and we would live in joy forever, you and me and you. Thank you.
I guess about 8 or 10 years ago now, I wrote a meditation on the sunset to use as part of a Susi sunset hike that I led for several years. So I'm wearing my Susi, one of my Susi t-shirts because I don't have anything to match the only pajama bottoms that I have. Yeah. I don't usually sleep in them. So I've modified this a number of times over the years since to fit the season or the occasion, and I've modified it a little bit for today. The sun is one of the 4 basic elements necessary for our survival on this planet, along with the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the earth that produces the food we eat. We fill tanks with air and use them to travel beneath the sea or out into space. We collect water in everything from great reservoirs to small plastic bottles, and we use it to irrigate our crops when rainfall is not sufficient. We move earth around from one place to another and can create level places or mounds of dirt wherever we want. We can pollute and we can purify all 3. But we can do absolutely nothing to affect the sun. Yet without the sun, plants would disappear, no longer producing the oxygen we need, and evaporation and precipitation would cease to circulate our water. We don't often take time to watch the sun rise or set. If we're awake early enough, we realize at some point that night has turned to day, but we didn't actually see the sun come up. Most of the time, we don't really exactly notice when the sun goes down. At some point, we realize that day has turned to night, but we didn't actually see the sun set. If we watched it every day, we would notice that it rises above the horizon and sets below the horizon at a slightly different point each morning and evening. It is farthest north at the summer solstice, and we enjoy the most daylight and the shortest night of the year. It's farthest south at the winter solstice, so we get the shortest day and the longest night of the year. Our entire existence depends upon the sun continuing to rise and set between these 2 points. If it began to move beyond them, or not quite as far in each direction, parts, if not all, of our planet would likely become too cold or too hot to sustain us. As long as it stays within those bounds, life goes on. We can do nothing to change the sun, nor have we done anything at all to deserve it. And that's what I call grace.
The sound coming from over here also reminds me that this is not just a children's table. I want to invite any adults that would prefer to do something with their hands while they listen to other, like sometimes you might want to color. And Jesse also reminded me that there's found poetry tools available over here. If you want to cut pieces out of a magazine, put something together, come up with something to read or share with everyone, you can do that too. So now, floor is open again.
Good morning. In coming here today, I was thinking about things that are meaningful to me, and I don't know if meaningful is the right word, but I thought about things that I try to remember when things go wrong. And one of the things that I say to myself is, Carol, if this is the worst thing that ever happens to you, you're a lucky person. Okay, but I found some others that I have hanging on my wall to remind me of this, and here's a picture of Charlie Brown and Snoopy. And Charlie is saying, "Someday we will all die, Snoopy." And Snoopy says, "True, but on all the other days we will not." Snoopy is very wise. And the other thing I have hanging on my wall is something I heard from Gordon. I didn't see, is Gordon here today? Gordon's out of town, okay. gave a sermon on July 10th of 2022 called Reflections on Gratitude. And it's I Am Thankful For by Nancy Carmody. I am thankful for the mess to clean up after a party because it means that I have been surrounded by friends. The taxes I pay because it means that I'm employed. The clothes that fit a little too snug because it means I have enough to eat. My shadow who watches me work because it means I am out in the sunshine. The spot I find at the far end of the parking lot because it means I am capable of walking. All the complaining I hear about our government because it means we have freedom of speech. The lady behind me in church who sings off key because it means I can hear. Lawn that needs mowing, windows that need cleaning, and gutters that need fixing because it means I have a home. My huge heating bill because it means that I am warm. Weariness and aching muscles at the end of the day because it means that I have been productive. The alarm that goes off in the early morning hours because it means that I am alive.
So, good morning. So first of all, I forgot what today was, as I often do. Forget what the topic is, what the program is going to be. But it was Sunday morning, so I get up and I come. But as I was sitting here and recognizing what was happening, I started to remember that, I do the Facebook thing because it's how I can connect with my family. But there's been something that has been recurring for the last couple of days. I am a fan of Yarmouth Kaukinen. Yarmouth Kaukinen was one of the founding members of Jefferson Airplane, and now they are hot tuna, he and Jack Cassidy. And Yarmouth was very prolific in writing songs and his lyrics. And what has been coming back and forth across Facebook is the first stanza of one of his songs, River of Time. A river of time, it marks our life from birth to death. There is no rhyme, a chance to meet. Along the way, will we go or will we stay? There is no sound of tolling bells. The task on earth is living well. And it just struck me, and as I'm sitting here and I'm remembering this, I thought, that's what I need to read today.
We were meant to bump into each other because these two really go. I have a couple of poems here about Chinese New Year that were written by women in the late 7th or early 8th century, a golden age. I'll just read one. If things slow down in hour 3 or 4, I'd be happy to read the other one. I think I can do this. Why are you laughing? Okay, so this is by a woman named, we call it Wu Zetian or Empress Wu, the only woman in Chinese history who found her own dynasty. Oh, thank you. I'm glad to have a professional. All right, thanks. And, but she also was sort of power behind the throne through a husband and 2 sons before that. So the deal is, it is the Lunar New Year, and you may have noticed, so in China that means the start of spring. They do it right there, I think. So the flowers are beginning to bloom. The very first flowering plums are going to be out. The particular event, the Empress and her retinue have gone out, probably near Luoyang, anyway, on the River Luo to some kind of country estate. They are having a banquet. These are 1%ers, man. The deal is the servants upstream are sending little cups of wine floating down the stream, and we 1%ers snag one now and then we can put the empties in and they'll float down and the help will take care of the empties. It's lovely, I'm sure. I've never actually done it. So that when the libations show up, I think the only other, I'm sorry about the footnotes, people. It's a habit. The other thing you need to know, there's a kind of the word return shows up in the original, like go back to where you came from. But there's a long tradition in Taoism. It means to go back to the Tao, the source, the undivided thing, the thing beyond language, you know. Which, of course, means also to return to your true self without all the foo-fa-ra. So, this poem, an evening banquet as the year begins, wind cups floating past. So, no, gotta wear them. Now spring starts, the best of seasons. 1,000 households throw their night gates wide. Fresh flames flare out from orchid lanterns. A halo shines round the new moon's bow. This gift of wine is only just enough. Let cup after cup drift down the stream, skimp, and it's all a waste. When my lords and envoys feel the rise of red libations' joy, only then may they ride off and, buoyant on the river law, become again who they really are. New Year's resolution.
I'll choose this one. So I do want to, I would love to have this go on for 3 or 4 hours, but I have other things to do today, and we want to respect the folks on YouTube's time. So we're at about the halfway point. So we have lifelines are going to be we're just going to hear folks' lifelines. Terry, you've got them. You ready to share them? We're not doing the candles and all that stuff today, so I just want to, but we want to make some space for a few things that people have shared with us so that they're current, so that next week we're sharing next week's joys and concerns. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you. Signed Sunday, way back in October.
Oh, there you go.
Dates. Happily, I have good news to share today as a member of the Caring Committee. The first item is from Barbara Horton, and I'm very happy to say that she let us know Bruce Stewart's surgery went well. And now the two of them are home, and he's recovering nicely. Hip, hip, hooray. And the second good news includes an appeal. So those of you who didn't brave the rain today, listen up, because you can do this too, maybe. It's Tim Andriano. He's going to need rides to church starting in January. He'll be coming back. And he can transfer from his wheelchair to a car as long as the car seat is at the right height level, like the reference says a CRV. I had to ask Lewis what that meant. He said it's a kind of Honda. So I think something along the line of a four-wheel drive. Anyway, the driver also needs to be able to put Tim's wheelchair into the car. So if you think you and a couple of friends could do that, please give Tim a call and let him know. And in the spirit of the day and the waning of the hour, I will just say, bless all of you and the joys and concerns that you hold in your hearts. We look forward to hearing about them some other time.
No, was that reverent? Was that reverent enough? Yes, Terry, thank you. Because we don't have to, so I know that we have some folks that came in, and so we are about halfway through, and this is not a typical Sunday, but we are sharing poems, stories, things that are important to us. And so we do love to make space for the joys. I'm glad we had some joys this week. So I'm keeping all of you and all of your joys and concerns in my own heart. And even though we're not lighting candles right now, remember the flame of our chalice that burns within us all. Okay, so next person who has a poem or an essay or a thing to share. Oh. Wow, okay, if there's too many, go ahead. I'm getting out of the way.
Good morning. This is a poem by Charles Bukowski, who is a poet of shocking vulgarity and occasional wisdom. It reminds me of something Chogyam Trungpa said about the Dharma, which is if you find a diamond in a sewer, you still found a diamond. It's the diamond from a sewer. Your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into submission. Be on the watch. There are ways out. There is light somewhere. It may not be much light, but it beats the darkness. Be on the watch. The gods will offer you chances. Know them. Take them. You can't beat death, but you can beat death in life sometimes. And the more often you learn to do it, the more light there will be. Your life is your life. Know it while you have it. You are marvelous. The gods wait to delight in you.
Mine is an oldie but goodie, so I think a lot of you are probably familiar with this poem, but it's where I go when I need something. Anyway, it's The Peace of the Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. Thank you, Wendell Berry.
Going to the short mic. Gotcha. My reading starts with a quote from Stephen Hawking. According to string theory, which is our best hope of uniting general relativity and quantum theory into a theory of everything, space-time ought to have 10 dimensions, not just the 4 that we experience. The idea is that 6 of these 10 dimensions are curled up into a space so small that we don't notice them. And this is a poem written by Mary Crockett Hill, in response to that quote. A theory of everything. It has something to do with invisible string rippling out across a universal sunset, wrapping us up like the perfect brown corded package. Something to do with the vibration of stars, how they flicker in tune with each other, humming cosmically. And though I've never seen this reported anywhere, I also believe it has something to do with dogs. For who else has such capacity to forgive an entirely other species? Well, yes, God, but I don't mess around with God. So in my theory, the wet nose of a dog fits in the space where our heart has been cut out. And after dogs, the pure yellow of lemons, the affection small children hold for Band-Aids, the urge to touch a stranger's bald head. It all has a place in the theory. Name it, and I will hang it on the clothesline. Name it, I will chop it up for soup. What's not to believe, anyway, in a theory that has room enough for all the other theories, even those that say this theory is shit? Sure, the vibration of strings we cannot measure. And yes, the strings are so fine, we haven't found them yet. One might surmise this is not about strings, but our desire for strings. You too are welcome at this party of everything. Come to my house, where we will speak of aqueducts and whiskers. We will eat brown bread and touch our feet under the table. You can tell me we're not connected, that there is nothing holding us together. I will tug your ear and peck you softly on the lips.
Good morning. So basically, I picked this poem because I love the poet. I mean, who doesn't pick a poem because they love the poet, really? But it's Sharon Olds, and she just is so wonderful at describing the emotions, giving visuals of everything she's explaining. And this poem is about childhood and some of the inexplicable and fierce feelings that children can have, but really that we all have. And, you know, just, I guess this spoke to me knowing that the holidays are not always a fun time for everyone, even though this isn't really just about the holidays, but just that there's a lot of different feelings going on at this time of year. So here we go. It is called Gerbil Funeral. So by the time we're ready, it's dark. So somebody goes for a flashlight, and we all troop out to the grave by its shuddering light. The beam goes down into the hole deep. Its talcum sides a soft gold. The autumn has been so dry. The crickets begin as our daughter wraps the coffin in black plastic, a shroud of glittering darkness, and her father, with his long arm, sets it in the bottom of the pit. And then there's a moment of silence. None of us knows what to do. She takes the shovel and drops the first spadeful of dirt. It lands with a crash. So the crickets all stop a moment, and she fills it in. She will not let us help. All that can be done for their bodies, even now her body will do. The dust flying in a pale net on her brother holding the light and swaying like the second gravedigger. No one speaks. We know this girl and the sweat of her silent love. 5 inches from the top, she stops and waters the shallow pit, kneels and presses tulip bulbs into the dirt, screwing them in like bulbs into sockets, black parrots, cardinals, flaming parrots, queens of the night, scrapes the rest of the soil in and waters it again. Beginning to flag, sprinkles grass seed on the top. It is over. They are dead. Then curled in the box with its scarlet velvet lining on a bed of sunflower seeds for the other side. And where is she? And that love she poured into them, where is it now? Dead? She turns and walks to the house, her heart cold and hard in her chest as a bulb in the winter ground.
Need this? If you don't know me, I'm Cindy's wife. This is another oldie. I request that you listen to it as if it's the first time you heard it. Listen to it as if you wrote it, which is the advice that I got when I was fidgety and having a hard time listening. Stone soup. Once upon a time, a poor traveler came upon a ramshackle village. She had nothing to her name but the clothes on her back, the shoes on her feet, and a pitiful sack which housed all of her belongings. Dusk was fast approaching, so she decided to try her luck in finding food and shelter. She came to the first house on the lane and knocked a friendly knock upon the door. The homeowner cracked the door, peered at the stranger. "What do you want?" "I seek only a crust of bread and some shelter, kind fellow. I shall continue on my way come morning. The person behind the door quickly shut it in the traveler's face, but not before saying, "We've no food to share. There's little enough for us as it is." Undaunted, the traveler tried the next house. They too shut the door in her face. So she tried the next house, and they too shut the door in her face. In the depths of her loneliness, the traveler searched her soul and found there an unlikely idea. She searched the ground and found a lovely, smooth stone. She polished it until it shined, and then approached the next house on the lane. She knocked on the door. "What do you want?" said an irritable old woman. "Ah, madam," said the traveler, "I am just on my way through town. I will be gone come morning. I have food to share, but I don't have a pot. May I borrow yours? I will happily share my dinner with you in return." Well, it's been a long time since the old woman had eaten anything beyond boiled onions, so she agreed to lend her pot to the traveler, who built a small fire on the village green, placed the pot on the boil. When the water started to simmer, she pulled out the smooth, shiny stone. With great dignity, she dropped it into the water with a satisfying plop. This only seemed to make the old woman more irritable. "That's it?" she scoffed. The traveler answered, "Oh, but this is no ordinary stone. It is a soup stone. When it simmers, it produces the most pleasant, delicious, and nutritious broth. It is my most treasured possession." The irritable old woman then looked into the pot with slightly more interest than irritation. Could this be true? She asked no one in particular. "It is, madam," the traveler answered. "As true as the sun rising in the east, setting in the west, this is a genuine soup stone. But," and here the traveler paused as if lost in a distant memory, "I have to admit, it is even better if it includes a few onions." Intrigued, despite herself, the old woman murmured, "I have some onions, more than I need. I can add them to the soup." The traveler was so grateful, she helped the old woman peel and cut the onions before adding them to the stone broth. Gradually, more and more villagers arrived at the fire, their curiosity overcoming their fear and suspicion. The traveler welcomed them all, saying, "This stone soup will be enough for everyone." Yet, also to teach each villager, she casually mentioned that the soup would be even better if it had just a small bit of yet another ingredient. Even the stingiest villagers had to admit it was no hardship to share a few potatoes here, a bit of bacon there, a little cream, some garden herbs, leftover meat and marrow from soup bones, and a scoop of beans or rice or vegetables. And with each addition, the soup became more fragrant, and the gathering of villagers became more convivial. At last, the traveler pronounced the soup to be complete. She took up the ladle, generously served the villagers before herself. Everyone agreed that this was some of the finest soup to have ever passed their lips. There was plenty to go around, and everyone ate their fill, and then some. "What amazing soup has come from this simple stone," enthused one villager. "It's simply a miracle." Warmed inside and out by their delicious meal, the villagers began to smile, then talk and laugh together in a way they hadn't for years. As the fire burned low, the old woman went to pick up her pot, asked the traveler if the stone was for sale. "Madam," the traveler answered, "the stone's magic is priceless. It cannot be bought." Finally, alone, the traveler made her pallet and fell asleep next to the fire's embers. She awoke just before dawn. She extinguished her fire, packed up her simple belongings, and prepared to set out on the next part of her journey. She took the stone from her pocket. She considered it, felt its weight, set it down next to the ashes, smiling to herself. The true story of the stone would be left here, to be taken up by any villager with the hunger to see. Thank you.
Finish off here with the, I didn't turn my mic on. That's funny. Where's the sound person? That's in her job. I've been a member here for 38 years. Not having particular spiritual beliefs, but I believe in our community. And I like to sing a poem that I'm sure you know by Robert Burns. And this particular song is sung this time of year a lot, but people don't know the words. They'll go to the first line that is la, 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 la. But I know all the words, so I'm going to sing the song, and you can sing along with me. You know it. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind, should old acquaintance be forgot and days of auld lang syne, for auld lang syne, my dear, for auld lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for auld lang syne.
So while we were, hello, I'm loud, I forgot. While we were over there creating, a Dixon Ticonderoga showed up, and my grandfather has always called them Black Warriors because that's what's on the box. And I wrote him a poem when I was a teenager about the relationship that we have with crosswords. And I've followed it up this year. This was a Father's Day present in 1996, and this year I wrote another for Father's Day in 2024. So this is the first one. It's a battle, really. Rows across, columns down, a battle. The wizened warrior takes his position, the trusty wooden-lead sword poised and ready. He wears the armor of one experienced, shaded in grays and seasoned browns. There's a kindness in his old face, and his gait is sure and true. For years he has gone this alone, steadily aligning the rogue soldiers by rank and letter, always the same weapons, always the same field. But it's gotten harder. Sometimes the forces won't go. Pop culture vigilantes crowd the arena, making discernment of sides difficult. Lines blur. Should this go across? Whom shall I send down? Then the young lady enters the field. Head held high, she approaches from a different world, a world of mechanical swords and fabricated words. Her garments are bright, sometimes blinding. With a laugh and a wry smile, she takes the renegades and commands them into place. Of course, a cross, old man, and let's stand this one down. There's a fury of questioning and mad fancy swordplay, his that of least effort and most effectiveness. She likes the flourish, but is no less dangerous. When their swords dull and the dust clears, the paper field has been taken by the odd pair. They stand facing each other, grinning, knowing that in tomorrow's times, another battle shall begin. And this year's is, what changes do the days bring? The queen's throne stands empty, the castle quiet. The younger warrior steps forward, gazing at the older gentleman through the looking glass. His eyes are weary with age. By all rights, he should be retired from the field. But as one smiles, the other grins. He raises his sword, gestures, and they begin again. Years melt away as they work across and down, vowel to verb. Who sang that song? Could they really mean this? Both have grown to know the author of their enemy, the architect of their fate. New ones show up every now and then, but with the times comes a pattern, and the day determines the difficulty. Together through the glass across the miles, they parry and attack, each working more on their own than in tandem. This time, when the dust clears, the battle remains unfinished. Go, he says, find another one younger than you to take up the mantle of the new, to be the one with the radio answers and the film solutions. Together they sit at the edge of the field, with glass between them, smiling at their legacy. The not so very young one sighs. Maybe another will arrive. Maybe it ends with us. They remove the glass and reach out a hand, ready to sharpen his sword one last time.
I'm taking the pencil.
I'm going to use this. Turn this back on. Is this on? Oh, yay. Does anyone else have something they came expecting and wanting to read they haven't had a chance yet? Okay. Thank you. Betsy, your song reminded me. We heard Jeff give a stirring reading on Christmas Eve of the Christmas Truce by Carol Ann Duffy. Yes, Kevin. Kevin found something. Yes. Okay. Woohoo! You want to come and read it? Okay.
I've been looking for this like the whole time. I was given a magic pencil when I was small, with a mixture of blue, red, and yellow marbled together on the inside. The first thing I tried to draw was a face. I carefully angled the pencil so the eyes would be blue, the mouth red, and the hair would be yellow. But my uncle, who gave me the pencil, encouraged me to let it choose the colors for me, not to think about anything as the right or wrong color. As a fellow artist, he was trying to show me how to be more free-spirited with my drawings. But I didn't get it at the time, and I went back to my box of crayons where I had control over every color. I think about that moment a lot, and what a missed opportunity it was. It reminds me that when we become rigid in our ideas of how something should be, we lose the chance to see how it could be and discover something new. I'm a professional artist now, and I often forget that what I'm doing is supposed to be fun. It's easy to get caught up in a routine and do things the same way you've always done, but the real joy of creation is to let go and be open to the unknown. I did not write this, by the way.
Well, I'm glad you found it. Thank you for sharing it with us. Any last chance? And for now, right, we'll do this again. We'll do this another time. James? Go for it.
I'm making a contribution. I had remembered this from a comedy record a long time ago, and I think it speaks to the Unitarian Universalist perspective. It's very short. It's an aggrieved hero and then a wry spectator, and it goes, "But the sun is going down." No, you're confused. The horizon is moving up. That's Unitarianism. I'm sorry.
Can both things not be true? That is Unitarian Universalism. Okay, I'm cutting you all off. No, I'm glad that Betsy brought a bit of song, and the other side of that Christmas truce story is from stuff that we will do this. I love this as an annual tradition, and I encourage you, if there are poems and stories and essays and things that are meaningful to you, to share them with other people, because the things we find and love may enliven someone else's life. There is a tale that's told of later years, a few years after the Christmas truce, later in World War I, when the trenches felt ever more in depth, and we have leftover writings from young men who were there, that at times British troops near the end of the war, when things were slogging, and I never remember anything but the first verse of Auld Lang Syne either. There are like a lot of verses, but that they would hear soldiers in the trenches, British soldiers singing, "We're here because we're here because we're here because we're here. We're here because we're here because we're here because we're here." Which can feel very sad and yet is also very true. We are here together, whatever the next day brings and whatever is waiting for us. So prior to extinguishing our chalice and inviting us to go have the pastries portion of the morning, I will return again to this, one of my favorite books, speculative fiction, poetry, hip-hop lyrics. It's all in here. But each cycle starts with a blessing and ends with a fairy tale. And so I started us with one blessing, and I'm sending us off with a final. It's called Blessing, Every Song That Made You by Kyle Tranmere. Before the performance begins, an elder addresses the people. Friends and neighbors, may your words create movement. May your music find the ear it was made for. May your style have substance, and your substance have style. When you battle, may you win. When you lose, may you learn. May your plans come to fruition, and may the spirits guide your improvisation when they do not. May you be humble enough to know that your voice is but one among many, but proud enough to make it heard. May you shine like a star, but contribute to a constellation too. May you love people, even when you don't like them. May the principles you hold live. May they extend beyond making sure others know you hold them. May you say the right thing on your way to doing it. May you do the right thing even when it is not the easy thing, or the expected thing, or the lawful thing. May you hear every song that made you, every poem that spoke you into being, and find harmony in the cacophony, find a rhythm that will always be with you. May your cipher never stop expanding. Yes, and Catherine is waving at me. Please put money in the basket on your way out. Yes, so we are now, I'm extinguishing the chalice. I'm extinguishing the chalice. Tink. I'm knocking over a piece of the teeny tiny nativity set. Okay, that's going to stay. Yes, so thank you. Thank you everyone who brought something and shared it. It was all beautiful, original, shared. We do have a basket over by the door. Please, we did not pass it and stick it in your faces if this was meaningful to you. And as Dotsie said off mic, I love you, UCR. This was a wonderful morning. Thank you for sharing your words, stories, gifts, and presents. Let's go eat pastries and stuff.